It's just happening. You are on the House Judiciary Committee, and you hear a lot about what's going on. We've had Director Wray at the FBI warning of targeted terror attacks. You have Director, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino also talking about this, calling it an act of terror, and even Governor Polis of Colorado calling it an act of terror. As you see these things unfold, what's coming to your mind, and what are your concerns?
Well, thanks for having me on. First of all, the biggest concern is for the victims and their families right now. Danielle and I are praying for them, especially the children who were being told were attacked in what is an utterly barbaric terrorist attack. My concern right now is the rise of anti-Semitism in this country. That is a movement, a hatred, and ideology that is not native to America, which is disturbing to me. It's been on the rise recently on college campuses. We've seen students shouting things like, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," disgusting anti-Semitic statements. And then, of course, just a week ago, we saw 2 Israeli diplomats murdered in Washington, D.C. This is a serious problem. And what I want to know is, why is this ideology blossoming in the United States? And why was this anti-Semitic terrorist here?
Congressman Griff Jenkins here. Thanks for joining us. To your point, Yaron Lashinsky, Sarah Milgram, beautiful young individuals murdered, shot in cold blood in Washington, D.C. Now this appears to be, according to the FBI and Governor Jared Polis of Colorado, a heinous act of terror, as the governor says. The police chief there locally saying he's not ruling anything out. He's looking harder. He is on the ground, so we'll defer to him. But it certainly appears that it could be tied to the Palestinian conflict, considering this was a group of individuals peacefully just doing a walk in support of Israeli hostages in Gaza. So my question to you, sir, is, when we see repeated incidences of violent anti-Semitism, do you feel that you and your colleagues, lawmakers, may need to take a tougher stance, to do more in Congress to combat this?
I have a few questions that come to mind for me. One is, we shouldn't be allowing Hamas supporters to come into our country legally or certainly illegally. I think that we should take a stronger stance against pro-Hamas sentiment on college campuses, where you see this anti-Semitic hate metastasizing every single day, and you see college administrators doing almost nothing to stop it. This is the result of that. This is a serious problem in the United States, and we have got to get a hold of it. So yes, we should be doing more.
Congressman Gill, Molly Line here. I'm reading a few reports there that this is a weekly event, that this is something that demonstrators supporting Israel show up and show their support for the hostages and for Israel on a regular basis in that area. Are you concerned about, all across America, potential attacks and needing to protect people that are making their voices heard?
Yes, one of the things that makes this country great is that we have the freedom of expression, that we can go out and we can march and we can give our views without hopefully having to worry about violent political reprisals against us. Our constitutional republic cannot operate if the American people cannot speak freely and debate different ideas. I can tell you that this kind of pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic hate is completely antithetical and incompatible with America's constitutional order, and it has to end if our country is going to survive.
Congressman, the question is, now what? As we continue to try to learn the facts of what exactly went down and why, Dan Bongino with the FBI, he says, if you aided or abetted this attack, we will find you. You cannot hide. Clearly, the administration is very diligent about making sure that this won't happen again. But quite frankly, it's happening, and it's happened before, and it seems to be happening over and over again. So what more can be done?
Well, I think we ought to be holding local elected officials accountable for allowing these kinds of pro-terrorist demonstrations to occur and allowing this kind of pro-terrorist a speech in political activity to metastasize until it gets to the point where violence occurs against Jews or against anybody else. I think Congress has a role in that. You've seen how impactful congressional hearings in the past have been whenever we've held college administrators' feet to the fire for some of this stuff. I think that that's something that we should pursue. But I think that everybody needs to be aware that political violence is always wrong, no matter what side of the aisle you are on. Violence against anybody because of their religion is always wrong. And we cannot allow that to happen in the United States if our country and our constitutional order will survive.
Congressman, what do you say to people of the Jewish faith? You know, you have friends, you have colleagues. I'm sure there's lots of people you've come across in your own community, in your congressional district. People all across this country who want to practice their freedom of religion, and they happen to be Jewish. And I think there are a lot of them that look around and are in fear that they are going to be targeted, and that even in a peaceful, Colorado afternoon, that they could be what may have been a firebomb. So what do you say to the people of the Jewish faith?
Well, first of all, I would say that fear that you're feeling is not entirely unwarranted given recent events, and this is just another example of that. I would tell them that we have your back. We are against these attacks. We're against anti-Semitism, and we're against this pro-Hamas sentiment that is gaining popularity right now. We're on your side. We see you, and we're going to stand up with you.
Yeah. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us and weighing in on this breaking news situation, this tragedy unfolding right here in the USA, what the FBI describes as a targeted attack against a group of demonstrators on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, just going, praying that the hostages would be released and regular families just doing what you would do on a Sunday afternoon, what all of us were doing before we came to this set right here in New York to do this show. Police are trying to determine now if those pro-Israel demonstrators were being targeted, and it seems like the congressman thinks that they were.